who cares? Like, why do I have to prove that I'm good at this? I feel like with Knocked Loose and where they're at in their careers, them still having me around, I would just be a nuisance if I wasn't really helping. You know, if I was just there because I'm somebody's girlfriend, it wouldn't be very helpful to have me around and like give me the jobs that I have. I would bomb it.
What's going on? This is Tori Kravitz. Welcome back to another episode of She's at the Band here on KNOTFEST. I am joined by lighting extraordinaire, fashion expert, and all-around badass Taylar Glasgow, who you may know from the Knocked Loose team. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. I've never done anything like this, so I'm like nervous. I'm excited.
Yeah. Like I just asked you 30 seconds ago. I'm like, wait, have you done a podcast?
Yeah. Nope, this is my first one.
I got the exclusive.
Yeah. I talk to myself like I'm on a podcast when I'm in the shower, you know? I'm like answering questions.
What are the like topics of these shower podcasts?
It's normally conversations that I had that I'm like redoing. Like, I should have said this. Actually.
I do the same thing.
I have my own little podcast.
Like, at first I was like, do I need to get my brain checked out? Like, is there something wrong with me that I'm having all these like reenactments of conversations? But
no, I think it's pretty normal.
Yeah.
I thought it was weird, but like the older I get, the more I'm like, oh, I think everybody does this. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. But hey, I'm surprised like that you haven't done any podcasts yet, or like that you kind of stay on the DL, because I mean, you have really like a cool following on social media, and obviously over the years you've been with Knocked Loose for forever and have grown so much as a professional in the industry. I feel like it was a no-brainer to have you on.
Well,
like,
thank you.
When I started this podcast, you were on my mind immediately. So
that's awesome.
It was just like so random because Knocked Loose is here doing they did the midnight hour little tiny show and then the deli thing and I ran into you and was like, oh my God, she's here. Well, works. Obviously.
Yeah.
So how has your time in LA been? I mean, it's been like a whirlwind with Knocked Loose.
Yeah. Like as of recent, like this past 2 weeks have been crazy. I mean, I live here, but I'm not here very often.
Right.
Usually it's like when we have a break, but then I got to come back to do all this with Knocked Loose, the midnight hour, the pop-up with Uncle Polly's. It's been crazy. Like very busy. I'm just now getting to a point where I get to like relax and kind of like go over the past week and like, you know, have that little podcast episode in my head where I'm like, I should have said this instead.
Totally. Well, you know what? I'm glad that I didn't have to have a podcast episode in the midnight hour, because I saw you in there and I was like, do I go say hi? Like, I don't know.
It was raining in there. Remember? At the end of the night, it was raining.
The AC was literally like leaking. Well, I didn't even notice at first until I saw people coming out of the pit soaking wet. And I was like, wait, I know we're sweaty in here, but what's going on?
It's raining sweat. I think that's what it was.
Yes. I mean, what's more metal than that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe if it was like blood or something.
I was standing in that room and, you know, everyone was kind of dispersing and I felt something drop on me and I looked up and I was like, oh, that's what just happened in here, and it's not raining down on me. So.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, I feel like I didn't expect anything less than that for Knocked Loose to take over any record store.
It was going to be crazy from the moment it was announced.
Really cool experience, though, because, you know, they're getting to such a point in their career where to be able to do stuff like that is really rare. But that's like the root of it in hardcore,
exactly.
You know? So it was cool to see them kind of staying true to that.
Yeah. And that's like the most important thing for them, too, is like making sure that they still get to do cool stuff like that. Because what's the point? It becomes like a job then. If you're not doing it for the reason that you started, then it's not fun anymore. So
and that's why they're so respected, you know, because they keep it real.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
But enough about them. Let's talk about you.
Okay.
I want to talk about your roots because, I mean, here's the thing. I said it. We talked on the phone before this. I was like, I could like doom scroll your Twitter and try and find out as much as I can, but I'd rather just have a conversation with you. So like, what are your roots in hardcore? Who were like your gateway bands? What got you into this in the first place?
So it's so long, but my grandpa was like a big metal guy. My uncle, big metal guy. So I grew up actually like going to their band shows.
As if.
And I was like, this is so cool. I want to be just like these old guys. Like, they're so awesome. That was my only knowledge of it at the time. And then I remember I was like 13 and I went to my first like DIY show and it was kids my age.
Oh, cool.
And I was like, well, this is way cooler than these old guys.
Like a backyard, someone's basement?
There was a venue in Louisville called Bulldog Cafe.
Okay.
And that was where all the shows were. And it was actually in the county that I lived in, which is rare. So it was easy to get a ride out there. So I got to do that a lot. That was like beat down metalcore music. And then all the venues that those shows were being held at kind of shut down. And I went a long time not going to shows. And then there's like a whole different scene in Louisville. It's crazy because I realized this like in high school, that was hardcore. And that was kind of like, I had listened to Terror before, like a lot of Victory Records bands that like really got me into hardcore, but I didn't know there was really a difference. It was just like, this is heavy music. Yeah. This is hardcore. It is a totally different world. And that's kind of like, you know, with Knocked Loose, that's where they got started as well. But yeah, it just going to Bulldog Cafe, seeing people my age play music that I had like grown up going to shows, watching, and realizing like, I don't care what I do. I just want to be in this room watching people play and like being a part of this culture where it's people my age and not just like old guys playing metal music, which God love them. Like my uncle's amazing. I still think he's the coolest person on earth, but that so was good. Like, yeah.
Well, it's cool that you found your lane, you know, like you could have just stayed in the lane of like your family members, but the fact that you found your place where you're like, this
I don't think that I would have thrived the way that I am right now had I not like branched off and kind of made it my own thing. So.
And isn't it beautiful how like all those little steps of when you were young slowly ended up building the trajectory of your life? Like that's so freaking cool.
It's crazy. And I was in some bands too.
Oh, let's go.
From the ages of like 15 to 18, I was in some bands. And
what did you do?
I sang. Yeah, I
like
sang.
Screaming?
No,
or singing.
I tried doing that, and I was like, I don't think if I'm not immediately good at something, I just won't do it again. And that was the case with screaming. I was like, well, I'm not good at this, so I'll just stick with singing.
Wow.
So yeah, I sang in some bands, and like, yeah, that's kind of went from there.
That is so cool. What kind of music was it? Was it also like hardcore? Well, you can't really. I don't know how singing and hardcore works.
Yeah, it was kind of that like MySpace era of like crossover. Like it was kind of metalcore. There was singing involved. That stuff doesn't really exist anymore.
So I'm thinking like I Set to Kill kind of thing.
Kind of like Amorosa, like that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
See, this is the stuff where I'm like, I never knew that. Yeah. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm like trying to learn all the cool stuff. So were you also from Oldham County?
No, I'm not from Oldham County. It's funny because Oldham County is like, it was a different world.
Yeah.
Like it's 30 minutes away from me, 45 minutes away from me. But that to me was like, that's not even in Kentucky. That's a different state, Oldham County.
So how did you and Brian end up meeting then?
Brian was in bands too, different bands too. And our bands played together. Yeah. So that's how we met.
Cute.
Yeah. It's pretty cute.
And the rest is history.
Yeah.
And the thing is too, I know you also went to school, you got a degree in international affairs.
Yes.
Which I'm curious because I have a degree in broadcast journalism. To be honest, I don't think it helped get me where I am. No offense to school. Like, school's important. Go to school if it's your thing. Yeah. But I'm curious if you found, you know, I know you also did, was it a bunch of classes like kind of feminism related? Yeah. Or how did that help you, if at all, in your career, you think?
I think so. It's like going to college, same. It hasn't really helped me with where I'm at now. But I do feel like leaving like the tiny county that I was in Kentucky and going to a different city and like learning and getting all these different perspectives, especially like the feminism classes that I took, international feminism, a part of my brain developed that hadn't before. And I was like, oh, and it made me look back on all the experiences that I've had in life and be like, well, that's why. That's why I am the way that I am now. And it did give me kind of like the confidence as a woman to be like, oh, I deserve more than what I've been given.
Wow. So is this from those feminism classes you took where you figured this out?
I think so.
Dang.
I think it like lit a fire in me that I was like, well, that's not fair. And I'm going to fix that.
And you are, I mean, I'm not trying to put pressure on you by any means, but I think you've been such an example of breaking boundaries as a woman. And there's so much to get into in this episode about all this, but like you've been such a great example of not letting gender define you and the path that you take. So from what I've seen, you're freaking crushing it.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. No, of course. And so then you end up with Knocked Loose.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. Is there any, do we want to get into the rest of the story of how you ended up, how did you end up on the road with them? So like obviously you're dating Brian.
Yeah. So Brian and I we've been together for 13 years now. Like, we've been together for a long time. We were together before Knocked Loose was ever even a thought.
Yeah.
And all the guys in the band I was friends with before. So when they started touring, I was always around anyways. I think one time they just, like, the person that was doing merch with them kind of, like, quit with not enough notice for them to find somebody else. So right. I was just like, I want to go. Like, that'll be fun. I'll go. It was a full Canadian tour. And when I say full Canadian, it was like in the middle of nowhere.
I was going to say, there aren't that many places to go in Canada.
You'd think, but there's a lot of places. There's just not a lot of people in those places.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I did that, and I just sold church for them, and it was like a little van tour. We were just driving through Canada, like northern Canada. I don't know, these tiny, tiny places. 20 people would show up.
Yeah.
But I had the best time. And looking back on it now, like, with all the tours that I've done, I don't know if that's the tour that I would choose to do again. But for me, I was like, this is so awesome. All that I've ever wanted to do in my life is travel and see the world. And so, like, my first tour being Canada was like a dream come true.
And you've freaking done it now. You've seen so much of the world.
Yeah.
I mean, I was looking through your Instagram and I was like, this is so cool. And what an interesting stigma to break as well, because there's so many bands who are like, oh, my girlfriend can't be on the road, or oh, that's like so punishing. And and mind you, I've also sold shirts for my boyfriend's band, so let's go, like we can do it.
Hell yeah, we can.
And so was there any hesitation that first time and having to kind of prove that you could be out there without it being a conflict of interest?
I think with the guys with Knocked Loose, no, because I was already friends with them. With everyone else, like, and this is still true sometimes, and I'm working on it, but showing up to a tour and there's like 50 dudes and I'm the only girl and I'm also the singer's girlfriend, I'm like, I'm just gonna do what I'm here to do. I'm not gonna talk to anybody. I don't even want you talking to me, Brian. I'm like, don't talk to me for the first 2 weeks. I don't want anybody to know this is why I'm here or to think that this is why I'm here. But yeah, that was like, there was a hesitation of like, is this allowed? Can I do this?
That's like such a, it's a bummer to hear that you feel like you have to like divide affiliation to be taken seriously.
Right.
And I know that's something we kind of spoke about and I really want to touch on is finding that balance of like, you're obviously proud of your partner, you're proud of the band and you're close with them. And yet because of that affiliation, you having to kind of prove your professionalism.
Yes.
So how do you sort of balance that and how do you feel about having to balance that?
So before, and I kind of mentioned this to you as well.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm going to go into a tour and I don't want anyone to know that I'm affiliated with anybody. Like, I want people to think that I got here because I worked hard to get here, because that's what happened. I did work really hard to get where I am.
You got yourself here.
If I sucked, I wouldn't still be touring with them. So that's kind of my thought process. But now I'm just like, who cares? Like, why do I have to prove that I'm good at this? I feel like with Knocked Loose and where they're at in their careers, them still having me around, I would just be a nuisance if I wasn't really helping. You know, if I was just there because I'm somebody's girlfriend, it wouldn't be very helpful to have me around and like give me the jobs that I have. I would bomb it.
And I mean, I saw you at the deli event working your butt off. You were hustling to sell merchandise. Like, it's not even just that you're good at your job. It's you have a highly respectable work ethic.
Thank you.
And you've earned your place here, just like any other professional would have. It's just so happens that the singer is also your partner.
Yeah, I think I said, like, it's a double whammy because I'm a woman, but I'm also the singer of the band that I work with. You know, so it is what it is. Like, I'm very proud of them as my friends. I'm very proud of Brian as my partner. And like now, and it's been a long time working on this, but now I'm just like, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm here to do what I'm here to do. I do it well. I know that now. Like, I'm confident in that now. And so. Yeah.
And I mean, kind of along those lines, I don't know about you, but especially early on, I guess, when I felt like I had to prove myself, there were certain like things in a venue, how I would act. For example, like, I would have a very serious face. I would act like I meant business. I would not smile. And I've kind of gotten over that now as I have confidence and know that I belong. But just through your years, have there been certain things or behaviors that you feel have helped with reinforcing the professionalism in a venue environment, especially when it comes to like security and these people who are just like insufferably misogynistic sometimes?
Yeah. So, and this might be a little long, but when I first started going to shows, and not to be like back in my day, but it was a totally different world. Yes. I mean, if you were a woman and you were at a local show, you weren't there for the music. You were there for like, oh, she's just here for male attention. And like,
and even though that's back in the day, we're still having to deal with the effects of that reputation, by the way.
Absolutely. That is something that like, when I try to explain to somebody, it feels like it's not that big of a deal. Like, it's in the past. Things are better now. We still have a lot to work on, but things are better now. But I'm like, no, you don't realize how that has impacted me till this day. Yes. I'm 30 and I still like think back to me being 13 years old and feeling like I got to make sure that I don't talk to any guys. I don't want anybody to think that I'm here to talk to guys. Like, I'm here because I want to be here. I want to be a part of this in some way. Mm-hmm. And so I think that I have a chip on my shoulder because of that. And when I first started touring, the mindset, I'm very easy to get along with, but I would walk into a venue and the first couple of bad incidents that I had, I immediately went into the mindset of I have to be tough and I have to be like, don't fuck with me because I will make your day bad. And
I was the same way.
Yeah. And like now I'm like, I don't think that things get resolved the best way when I act like that. And I don't blame myself for being that way. Like, you kind of have to learn to navigate the world as a woman. And the way that I learned was be tough immediately so that nobody fucks with you. Immediately if a security guard isn't going to let me through the door because they don't believe that my pass is real, or they check everybody else, or they don't check everybody else, but they check me, I'm like, fuck you. Immediately arguing like, you don't know who I am. I actually work here.
Right.
But now I'm like, okay, let's tone it down a little bit. Like, you don't immediately have to jump head first into like getting offended because you're a woman and that's why they're treating you differently. So I think like just not taking everything so personally. I've had to learn that the hard way.
Sometimes that just comes with age and time, unfortunately. Yeah. But we must have had very similar paths because I used to be purposefully a bitch so that people would like, no, I meant business.
Yeah. And like sometimes it did work. Sometimes they're like, all right, whatever you want.
I would get some security guards going, whoa. Yeah. Stuff like that.
Yeah. And I try to like go into situations like that giving people the benefit of the doubt. Mm-hmm. Like, some people just don't know. Some people need to learn. And like, that's not an excuse. But also some people aren't there with bad intentions. Like, sometimes security guards really just...
And it's just like that sort of subconscious ingrained habit of thinking. Yeah. And I suppose the more... And you know what? Representation matters, because the more you see girls in venues working, the more they'll get out of those habits, maybe. Yeah. You know?
For sure.
I'd like to think that.
For sure. That is absolutely the answer to it.
Yeah. So we had to pay our dues. Yeah. So the girls after us can hopefully not have their pass checked twice.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, going back to, so you start with merch. Mm-hmm. And so how do you feel that merch kind of was that stepping stone of learning life on the road and was maybe an educational experience in your journey for you? Like, do you think it just strengthened you as a touring professional?
I think so. I think the coolest part about doing merch is getting to talk to everybody. Mm-hmm. It's like, that strengthened just my communication skills in general. But yeah, getting to talk to the fans and like take what they're saying back to the band and being like, hey, a lot of people are saying this, we should do this, or maybe we should stop doing this because a lot of people are saying this. It's cool because I get insight from like the fans and then also like behind the scenes, and I get to like put those together and kind of be the only person that has that insight on the tour. Yeah. Like, I'm talking to people, I'm getting to know these people, I'm seeing the same 5 people that have been to the last 10 shows. They bought a ticket for every single show. So yeah, I think that's been beneficial.
That's really true. Yeah, you definitely get a certain intel with that one-on-one experience with every single fan that's buying a shirt, or buying whatever it is.
Yeah, for sure.
And also thinking of like a learning curve. I don't know. This feels like it could be a funny question because you kind of were roughing it in the beginning, being in a van tour with a bunch of guys.
Yeah.
And now things have gotten a little nicer.
Things are a lot nicer.
It's getting better. Yeah. But did you have any learning curves, even as far as being in a touring vehicle with all the guys and having to adjust to that sort of lifestyle, because that's very unique too?
Oh yeah. What can I touch on? There's so much. I mean, I think like just living with that many people, because you're living in a car with that many people for like 30 days straight. Yeah. That alone is like, that's a learning curve for anybody to do. So that alone is a big thing. But I think just like, I don't know, being the only girl is a really, like, I have to pee a lot, you know?
That's the thing. They can use water bottles. Us, on the other hand.
I'm like, every 30 minutes, I'm like, I have to pee. But like, I don't want to let them know because they're going to be upset with me. Yeah. They never were. They never are. But it's like, I have to be the annoying person that's like, I have to pee. I can't pee in a bottle. Yeah. Can we please pull over to a gas station? There's been times where we're in the middle of nowhere and I'm like, I've been holding it for an hour because I didn't want to bother anybody. But like, we have to pull over on the side of the road. I got to like squat in the woods or something. So, I mean, there's stuff like that. But then the big thing is like living with 5 people. Yeah. Living with 5 people in such tight spaces. And then like, there was a point where I was the only crew member. So it was just like all the guys and me. And I'm like picking up the small things that they're not taking care of because they're so focused on like, we have to load in, we have to tune our guitars, whatever, set up on stage. And then not like taking that with me after, like, I worked so hard today. Yeah. Let me have the back bench where I get to lay down, you know?
True. Well, so that's something too, is so they very much have like the DIY mindset. For sure. That's still something that they carry with them. And with a DIY mindset comes adaptability to do whatever job is necessary at any time on tour. And, you know, saying that you were kind of attentive to these little things that maybe weren't your job, but it's the responsibility of a crew as a whole. Yes. So what have been some of the more challenging or interesting things that you've had to face that you didn't expect?
Well, being the only crew member, and I mean, Knocked Loose did the DIY like van thing way longer than they should have. I mean, they were outgrowing themselves very quickly. And so being the only crew member for a little bit, there were things that needed to be done as they were getting bigger. And it was like, well, I can do that. Like, I'll tour manage them for a month until we get a tour manager for the next tour. I quickly learned that's not my area of expertise. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like, doing the DIY thing, everybody's picking up jobs. Like, Brian's doing things that like normally you wouldn't think a singer would do. We're dealing with like, I mean, driving alone. I was a driver too. I was like doing merch until 12 a.m. going to sleep and not actually going to sleep because, you know, there's the after show, like, got to stop at Taco Bell. Everybody's got to get food. Yeah. We hang out for a little bit, talk about the show. It's like 1:30 before I'm actually falling asleep. And then 3 o'clock in the morning, someone's like, it's your turn to drive.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So.
Wow. And were you driving, it was like a van and trailer?
Yeah, it was a van and trailer.
And that in itself is a skill.
Yeah. The first time I did it, I mean, we've talked about this. Like, I think I can do anything. Yes. And the first time someone was like, can you drive? Like, everybody's tired. Do you think you can drive? And I was like, yeah, I can drive. Everybody's passed out. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like shaking at the wheel. Like, I have all these people's lives in my hand. Right. I have a trailer attached to this van. I'm like on the expressway. There's people speed. I'm doing like 30 because I'm so scared. But yeah, that's, yeah. You know,
wow, you've done it all.
You got to adapt, yeah.
To be fair, so I've been out here in LA for a couple weeks, and literally day one when I landed, my friend asked me if I could drive her to some like award show, and that was me on like the LA freeway, because I'm a Florida girl. We don't drive like this out here.
No, I don't drive in LA.
It's crazy.
Not good at it. I don't do it.
I understand the driving anxiety very much, but that is a whole other level. With a trailer, the whole thing, respect. Thanks. You've paid your dues. And so like with this DIY mindset of picking up all these jobs, lo and behold, you are now a lighting director because Knocked Loose needed a DIY lighting setup, and who better than you, right? And so like you didn't have any lighting experience. No. You learned, and I'm going to say you learned like on your own, but you did have help. You had people guiding you, but ultimately like you're a self-taught lighting director. You didn't like learn in a college the way some people would or anything. And I think it's a little underestimated how complicated that job is. Yeah. I've watched lighting directors and sometimes it's so intricate I forget to watch the show because it's so cool.
I think I still have a hard time understanding how hard it is.
Really?
Yeah. Like I still am like, I have so much more to learn. With lighting, it is one of those things like you will truly never know it all. It's technology, and technology is constantly changing. So, I mean, I'll never know it all, and I still have so much to learn. But yeah, the lighting thing happened because we did a tour with Every Time I Die. Cool. And yeah, and their merch guy, who's the first merch person I ever toured with, and I love him. They had their own little like DIY board and like strobes and stuff, and ETID was like a big, Noctilus really looked to them for a lot of the moves that they made. And they were one day just like, you should do that. Like, let's do lights. And of course you think lights, you just hit a button and they come on. Anybody can do that. It's not that at all. It's not that at all. We did the first tour with our own package, and our package was going to a Guitar Center, buying like the cheapest lights that they had, the cheapest board that they had. And even that, I was like, why can't you just plug it up and then press the button and it comes on? It just doesn't work like that. Wow. But we showed up to the venue with this stuff, and the LD of the band that we were on tour with was like, no, that's not going to work at all. So he kind of helped me, kind of show me like how to use the house boards and like use the real lights.
Right.
And yeah, since then it's just been like lots of YouTube, lots of calling random people that I don't know and being like, I know you don't know me, but do you think you can stay on the phone with me for an hour and talk me through this?
Wow.
And surprisingly, it's been great. It's hard. There's been a few shows where I go to turn on the lights and nothing comes on.
Like, isn't that the worst possible thing that could happen?
It's the worst possible thing. Or like, or hitting the strobe button and it sticks and then the strobe just stays on. The song's ended. The entire venue is strobing. The singer's talking on stage and there's strobes. It's so embarrassing. And I'm just like,
sorry,
my
I should have
face
laughed.
is on fire.
I don't want to embarrass you more.
No, it is. It's hilarious. It's hilarious. In the moment, it's not funny, but looking back on it, I'm like,
it's funny to like imagine it happening. But
yeah. And
so how do you sort of, I mean, having to think on the fly and also have the confidence to rein it all in, how have you figured this all out? And I mean, you're a boss now, you know?
It's just a lot of like, I mean, thinking that I can do it and then being in the moment of like, okay, you thought you could do it, now you have to do it. That is like the best way that I learn, really, is like, knocked loose goes on in 5 minutes. This isn't working. You need to figure out how to fix it in 5 minutes. And sometimes I don't figure it out, but sometimes I do. And then next time I know not to do that, or I know how to fix it.
Right.
That's kind of all that it is.
So do you really thrive in high pressure situations?
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, you must, because that's a lot.
I do. And I don't know if thrive is the right word. If I had
or like you succeed.
Yeah,
you know,
I succeed. Thrive, if I was better at doing things beforehand, you know, and being more prepared, maybe I would thrive. But I do succeed in high stress environments.
Yeah, when there's no choice, you just do it.
It's like your ADHD is out the window. You have to fix it now.
Yeah.
Like there's no time to get distracted. It needs to be fixed now.
Yeah. And I do want to touch on that because you said, I'm going to find the exact quote. I literally wrote it down. We were on the phone. I was like, that is such a good quote. My toxic trait is that I think I could do anything.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
I loved that so much. Like that should be like a cursive tattoo on my arm or something. So how did you develop this mindset of, I mean, just being so ambitious and going for anything that you want to achieve? I
love that you have turned that into like a positive thing, because it is when I think about it.
I think it is.
Yeah. For me, it's just like I've always been like that. I'm always like, how hard can that be? I can do that. And it's gotten me into a lot of trouble, but it's also gotten me where I am, I think. Like, being like, yeah, I can do lights, even though it's a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. I still kept at it, and I still was like, okay, this is harder, but like, how much harder is it going to get? It can't be that much harder.
Well, like the flip side is that you have a completely limiting mindset, and then you're just stuck. So to me, that's why I see it as something positive, because I think it's they say so cliche, but the only failure is that you don't try.
For sure.
Because even if you maybe can't do something right away, you're learning.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, okay, maybe you couldn't do lights on day one, but you thought you could, so you've learned. And now look at you.
Yeah. And that's why I said, I love that you said that, because to me, it's always been like, I'm getting myself into such a mess. But like, yeah, I guess now I'm sitting here realizing, like, I guess if I didn't have that mindset, I definitely wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now.
No. I mean,
thing.
if I wasn't 14 years old thinking I could get on Warped Tour, I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Which, were we on the same, we both were on Warped Tour 2017?
Yeah. I think so. It was.
Because I don't know that I met you on that tour.
I don't know. I know
it
that.
It was the one they were on the Full Sail stage and there was like a swarming crowd every day.
No. So that was their first Warped Tour. That was the last year before I started touring with them. But I did go to a lot of the shows. I did a lot of the like Midwest, like Tennessee, Cincinnati. I showed up to a lot of those.
Because I was like,
it was a big deal.
Why didn't we meet sooner? Because you're so sick. Where was I? Where were you? So I was wondering.
Because I think we did eventually meet through Isaac. And maybe it was, were you on the following year? Maybe it was the following year.
I did 2015 to 2018.
Okay. So 2018 probably is when we met. Which is awesome.
He's a real one, by the way.
Yeah.
Hi, Isaac.
Hi, Isaac. He's great.
I hope he's watching this. I hope that, you know what? They should all be watching this episode.
I'll make them sit down and we'll all watch it together.
Pop some popcorn, get in your pajamas, make it a whole, like maybe a premiere experience.
Oh, yeah. On an off day. The next tour on an off day, we'll do that.
I love that. Yeah. So then it's going to be like a weird moment when you're sitting and watching this part of the interview and you'll be like, now we're doing it.
Yeah. Here we are.
We talked about it and now we're doing it. But also, okay, where was I? I'm like losing my train of thought because I was just so into it. Yes. Lighting. I want to keep talking about this because we've talked a little bit about like the technical side of it, but also I think there's something to be said about the design and the eye for it, like the creative side of lighting. How did you develop an eye for this? And how do you know kind of at what part of the set to have what kind of lights? Because it really affects the mood of a show and the way it's perceived.
Yeah. I don't know if obviously the band gives me as much creative freedom as I want, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So I think it's just like practicing a lot. We'll be like 2 weeks into a tour and I'm like, I'm going to do this instead of what I've been doing because this is way cooler. So it's just like playing around and trial and error, I think is mostly what it is for everything that I do is trial and error.
And do you think the fact that you've also been to so many shows and were so involved in shows, like you were even subconsciously seeing the lighting and getting ideas and absorbing that information?
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe. It's funny because I look back, like if I mess up or something in the middle of a show, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so hard on myself. But then I'll be like, before you did lighting, did you notice when they messed up lighting? No, you didn't.
And that's true for anything. Because I remember, for example, like when I started doing interviews, I'd be like, oh, I said that question wrong.
Yeah.
No one knows how I wrote it on my silly piece of paper.
Right.
Only me. So as long as it goes well, no one knows whether something's right or wrong. And
I don't think people pay attention to things as closely as we think that they do.
I think that's given me a lot of freedom as an adult when I start realizing that everybody's too focused on themselves to care about you.
Yeah.
Right? Because I'm like, I could dress silly. No one's going to notice.
Exactly.
Like, do whatever I want. So hopefully people don't start watching me closely thinking I'm doing weird shit.
Right. No.
Keep staying in your lane.
Yeah. Worry about yourself.
And I know also this has kind of expanded into being a part of like the entire stage design, like the cab covers, backdrops, all of these things. So it's not just lighting for you now. So how did you also kind of get an eye for stage design as a whole and also thinking about the headliner? I know you're doing some kind of new, exciting things. So what have you been experimenting with? So
this headliner is going to be awesome. That's like as much as I can say. It's going to be very cool. I think I just get tired of going to shows and seeing the same things over and over again. Is like, there's lights, there's strobes. And even with my own shows, I'm like, God, I'm tired of doing the same exact thing on the same exact part. And I want the stage to look differently. And I want it to be something that nobody's ever seen before. And so going back to like, I think that I can do anything. I'm watching like Taylor Swift production and I'm like, whoa, what if Knocked Loose? What if we,
So have you gotten any ideas from her? Because I mean, the production is something to behold.
Yeah,
for sure.
There's definitely ideas. Nothing that I think we can do as of yet. We're not at that level yet.
Oh, so you don't want fireworks across the stage or something?
Of course I want them. Of course. Will the fire marshal allow it? I don't know.
TBD.
TBD for sure.
I did get the intel from New Year's Day when I did that interview that it's like $5,000 per for like fire on stage.
It's crazy.
It is crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to see what you're doing, what you're trying. And it's cool now that people are going to see the stage design and be like, Taylar did it.
Yeah. And I have like, it's not just me. I'm working with other people, of course. And like KNOTFEST is very hands-on with stuff like that. Like they want to make sure that they're not just like showing up and playing guitar and like clocking out. So it's kind of a team effort, but they've really given me the reins to kind of do what I want. And even like some of the crazier ideas, they're like, okay, if you think it'll work, sure, whatever. It sounds cool, but we'll see. So,
well, at least they give you a chance.
For sure.
And then if it is actually, they'll tell you. But, you know, you have the freedom to try.
Absolutely.
Right? And this is a question, I don't know, I feel like most people in the industry get. I've definitely gotten it before, and I think you're kind of a really good person to ask is, you know, there might be people who really want to get their foot in the door, but sometimes it is kind of like a club of who you know, or how do you get your foot in the door as someone in the industry. So what would your advice be?
Always support whatever local bands you have, whatever local scene that you have. Show up and do whatever. Just go to the shows. You know, just go. But also, if you want to make zines, make zines. If you want to start a band. Because those are the people that we remember, right? Later on, it's like, we need extra help in this city with merch. This person has been coming to shows since they were playing 100 cap venues. And, like, they've always been there. They've always supported their local bands. It's networking, really, is what it is. But if you're supporting from the ground up, you will always be remembered for that.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing is there's so many people who will like slide in the DMs of some huge band, and it's like start with who's around you and
If you're not supporting your local scene, what is the point?
Yeah.
Really, what is the point? And if you don't have a local scene, then make one. Anybody can do it, really. Just like learn how to play guitar or find somebody who can.
Yeah. Or just learn.
Learn something.
It only takes a couple power chords to play some pop punk.
Yeah, exactly. Anyone can do it. No,
I could play a Green Day song.
I couldn't.
I could play like Brain Stew.
Yeah.
It's fine. But yeah, and something I want to talk about too, because we've talked about obviously KNOTFEST being so hands-on and so supportive of your endeavors. And I think they're also really great examples of promoting like inclusivity and support within their camp. And obviously that applies to how they've treated you as well. So I'd love to hear a little bit, you know, for just as an example of ways that men can help elevate any minorities, how they've been a good example or things you've learned as far as like good practices that have been useful to you.
Sure. This is fun because I kind of get to brag on them a little because they are my best friends. They really are. I mean, I live with them like 9 months out of the year. So, and they're just like great guys all around. But something that I've noticed with them is like when we do have women with us on tour, it's not just like, hey, we need a photographer, but it has to be a woman. It's never that. It's always like, here's a person that's great, and we value them and respect them for their hard work and how talented they are. And also, we're going to trust them to do their job. That is the biggest thing. I see so many... I've gotten offers myself of like, hey, this band needs a merch person, but they want it to be a woman. And it's just like I get it. That's important. But like, I want you to want me to work for you because I'm a hard worker and because you've seen what I can do. And like, I'm getting like cold called by this person that doesn't know me, but I'm a woman. So like, yeah. So I think number one is like, we're not just being inclusive to look inclusive. Right?
Not for the novelty of it.
Yeah. If you're giving somebody a job because they're a woman, and then you're also not letting them do their job, you're not trusting them to do their job, then it doesn't really work. And it's kind of fake. Yeah. But KNOTFEST has given me the freedom to be like, you're the LD now. Like, we don't know anything about it, so do your thing. We'll give input if we need to, but like, you're the one that knows lights. You're the one that deals with merch. What do you think? It's not about what we think. We're not there. What do you think? Right. So I think giving me the freedom to just, like do my own thing.
Delegating.
Yeah, absolutely. And like also letting me problem solve, because that's the important thing, right? Is like women have different backgrounds. We all have different backgrounds. And like approaching a problem with someone from a different background, they're going to solve it differently.
Yeah.
And we need that so badly right now. We need that.
And that's something, this is a great point because, so I seem to approach the question, usually it's like with a musician, and I'm like, so obviously women create a different kind of heavy music, or there's a different kind of emotional perspective in the heavy music that a woman would create versus a guy. And not that one's better than the other, but we have different perspectives. And that does apply to how we approach jobs too. And there's a value in that for sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, for sure. And it also, I mean, it applies to everything, race. Mm-hmm. I mean, having femme people in general is like, I've seen it with my own eyes because we do approach things differently and we do problem solve differently. And some of the most simple problem solving, some of the biggest issues that I've seen that are constant issues on tour have been solved by a femme person. And it's like, duh. Why did I not think of that? Why did we not think of that before?
Yeah.
And yeah, like that in itself is important.
For sure. Great answer. I'm so glad you're here.
Thanks. I'm glad I'm here too.
And one thing that we as femme people also strive at is fashion. You are an icon.
Thank you.
Your outfits are to die for. And I feel like you just have a really cool, like unique sense of style. And I feel like I would be absolutely dragged if I didn't ask you about this in the podcast because like, hello. How inspired is your fashion by like hardcore culture and where do you shop? Like what's the sitch?
So I would love to say that I thrift everything that I get. I'm so bad at thrifting. That's the cool answer, but I'm so bad at thrifting. So I just kind of follow people that are good at it. And then I'm like, I'll buy that from you. So that's kind of like where I get, they're thrifted, but they're not really thrifted, my clothes. And then also like, for example, the pants that I'm wearing, they're made from someone in Louisville. He just decided to start like making denim. So stuff like that, like mom and pop, you know, whatever.
Right.
Hardcore, I don't know that hardcore really influences my fashion. It used to. I think if anything, it kind of made me break away because it was just like the classic like band t-shirt, jeans, gotta wear a band t-shirt. Mm-hmm. So everybody knows you're hardcore. Yeah. That's your like your whole thing. You gotta wear a band t-shirt. But I just kind of got to a point where I was like, but I don't really want to wear band shirts anymore. And like if people think that I'm not alt or whatever, that's totally fine. I just like, I'm an adult. I want to dress the way that I want to dress.
Yeah, that was totally a rite of passage for me too, where at first it was like I needed people to know I liked rock music
for sure.
and would wear the shirts. And I'm like, I have nothing to prove.
Yeah.
I've got nose piercings. Figure it out. Or whatever.
Well, it's also an identity thing, right?
It is.
Like
it
when
is.
when music is your whole world, and it is my whole world, it is your whole world. It's like, well, I guess I'm going to dress like I'm around all these people. This is what they wear. I'm going to dress like them. That's just how it works. But yeah, I just wanted to do something a little bit different. So I was like, maybe I'll just wear whatever the hell I want and stop collecting band t-shirts.
And if it wasn't band t-shirts, there was that moment where all the hardcore kids, I was one of them, was wearing those like orange camo pants.
Yeah. I never had the orange ones, but I definitely had and still do
ones.
Camo pants. Yeah. That was a big moment, wasn't it?
It was such a moment.
It was such a moment, yeah.
I think
and
I
loved
them
it.
like my Four Loko pants because they looked like a Four Loko can.
That's, yeah.
Those were tough years. Tough years looking back.
But we can look on them. We can look back on them wondly and just
I'm
be
laughing
like,
now.
we were there for it. We experienced it.
Yeah. I think I went to FYA Fest wearing the orange pants, which was just so cliche.
So sick. I have a friend that had like every color, and it was his thing. It was like, he's got orange, he's got pink, he's got the green ones.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was a moment for sure.
I love that. And another question that I probably would be remiss if I didn't ask is, I mean, you said you and Brian have been together for 13 years. Mm-hmm. So we're going to turn this into a relationship podcast real quick. What's the secret? How have you all been together for so long? Because it's, I mean, so beautiful that you have essentially grown up and just grown and flourished as humans together.
Yeah. Well, at first, when people asked me this before I toured with him, I was like, oh, touring. Like, I'm away from him for so long that I miss him so much when he gets back that we just like hit it off so well. But now that I tour with him, I'm around him all of the time.
You don't get a chance to miss him.
Yeah, it's kind of just like, I don't know, we just support each other. I mean, that's really all that there is. We listen to each other. He's very, very open to hearing ideas from me. Knocked Loose is like kind of our whole life. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's my job. It's his job. we live together. So when we're not on tour, we're kind of talking about it. But like having him value me in that space, but also as his partner,
right?
That's what's basically given me the confidence to be able to like walk into a room and be like, who cares? You know, who cares if I'm his girlfriend? I'm fucking doing my job and I'm doing it good. So,
and it would have been such an easy cop out to like keep the work and relationship separate and to never have been involved at all. So it's really cool to see that you've found a way to professionally work together and contribute to the project together without it ever being like this conflict. Like it's something that it's made you stronger, and that's really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if that's the best answer for relationship advice. We kind of just make it work. I don't know. I truly believe that there's like a person for everybody, and I think he's just my person, and that's the only secret.
It's melting. No, but there's something to be said about respect.
Yeah.
And respect for each other. Like
absolutely.
That's key, obviously.
Yeah, like we are equals through and through. And that's definitely helped a lot.
For sure. Yeah. And obviously you said one of the reasons you love touring is being able to travel and see the world. And I do want to ask, like, what has been your most memorable travel experience with Knocked Loose?
Probably so Knocked Loose did like a Southeast Asian tour. Oh yeah. Which is like, you don't even have to be on tour if you go to Southeast Asia. It's like, whoa, this is a world that I've never seen before. But the most interesting, because the kids there were so thankful to see their favorite band. And it just made me like, I'm so happy to be a part of this and get to meet all these kids. And at one point, they had played a show in like Malaysia or something, and I was just helping clean up, and I turned around, there's like a line of like 15 people wanting to take a picture with me. And I had to be like, I'm not in the band. And they didn't care. They just wanted a picture. They were just like so happy to be there. And yeah, I think like we're kind of spoiled in that regard, where it's like, of course we love going to shows and stuff, but like this is like a once in a lifetime thing for them to see their favorite band. So yeah, I would have to say the entirety of the Southeast Asian tour was like mind blowing to me.
There's definitely like, I've had those reality checks where, I mean, we've both been in the industry for so long that the novelty wears off because it's just your everyday life. Yeah. And then you'll have those little moments where you're like, this is really special. To some people, to see one of these shows is like, I don't know, a milestone of their life.
Yeah. It kind of takes you back to when you were young and like first finding heavy music.
Yeah.
And you're just like, you don't care if the band, I didn't care if the band was good or not. I just wanted to be there. I just wanted to be a part of the energy. Yeah. And so that definitely took me back to being like, oh, I remember being this excited and like, what's wrong with me? I should still be this excited about seeing bands play. And like, yeah, it definitely made me thankful.
Yeah. Well, I think that's also something that has come a little full circle because like I got in this industry because I was a fan, right? And I think like most people would say that whether they want to admit it or not, like that's the truth. Sure. We all get in it because we love it. Then you have that moment of like, oh, I'm too cool. I'm going to act like this is no big deal and it's whatever. Yeah. And now I'm like, oh, I'm a fan. You know, like I love this. And and I think that's, I don't know, to me that's where the magic happens when you find your passion again. Yeah.
The second that you become too good for it, is like, don't do it anymore. It's not fun anymore. It just becomes a job or, you know.
Yeah. Big perspective check for sure. Oh, that's a really cool moment though for you. And like the fact that you've been able to see such incredible parts of the world that for me, I would never imagine going
Never to thought Asia. That I would have been able to do that. So yeah, super thankful for that experience.
Yeah. And I mean, more to come because Knocked Loose is like blowing
Yeah, it feels like they're just getting started. It really does.
It's like, it was crazy because, you know, I mentioned the Full Sail stage when, I mean, there were such massive crowds. They were too big for that stage already when they were on Warped Tour. And to me, I already thought they were such a huge band. Then I'm like, oh gosh, it's only just multiplied and it continues to multiply. And it seems like they're breaking that ceiling of the scene at this point. It's getting crazy.
Some of those Warped Tour on the Full Sail stage, some of those days I was like, I feel like they should move this to the big stage. This seems not safe, but whatever.
Yeah. Well, you know, live on the edge.
It made good memories for sure. Something fun to look back on.
It's really cool. And it's cool to have watched not only your journey, the band's journey, and who more deserving, honestly. So, I mean, congrats for everything.
Thanks.
Yeah. Now, we end every episode with 4 jaw-dropping questions.
Okay,
so are you
great.
ready for your turn?
Maybe. We'll see.
Thanks for that was good acting. Thanks. So the first one is the most jaw-dropping experience you've ever had at a show.
Most jaw-dropping experience. Gosh, I don't know. I feel like I have 2.
Okay.
I have 2, if that's okay.
Of course.
So LDB Fest, which is a fest in Louisville, it's a hardcore fest. I want to say it was like 2013. I watched a band. They're not a band anymore. But do you know that moment when it's like there's so much chaos that you're like, someone's definitely going to get hurt in this?
Yeah.
But you're not worried about that in that moment because you're just so like, oh my God, this is insane. Like, I cannot believe that my friends put this fest together and this is happening in the room. So that was, I think that happens every year at that fest though. I'm like, this is crazy. I can't believe this is happening.
I haven't been, but now I gotta go.
Yeah, you should. Yeah, next year.
Okay.
But most recently, the Midnight Hour show. I got to watch Knocked Loose from side stage. I never get to do that. And in such like an intimate setting, I was like, whoa, kind of emotional because this is like, I see them in giant rooms all the time with a barricade, but this was a no barricade show. There's kids up front that are like, they're in it. And yeah, it was cool to see it from that perspective for the first time in years.
I agree. I felt like there was something very palatable in the room. Like there was just like, these people are diehard Knocked Loose fans. Who knows if I'll ever see them in a room this small again.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. Such a cool moment. And also
lots of friends in the room too.
Yeah, which makes it even better.
Yeah, it was great. And then the most jaw-dropping misstep early in your career and the lesson you learned from it.
I'm going to have to just go back to approaching things so negatively about like just assuming like I'm a woman, so I'm going to be mistreated. So I need to come in with like low brow and like don't mess with me. I think that was a misstep, I think, for sure. But I learned a lot from it. So
well, it's good for anyone who's listening who's like just starting out. Just kill them with kindness.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Don't let them bother you.
Well, there's something really professional about showing up and just shaking someone's hand and being kind.
Yeah.
Like, that's really powerful for sure.
Yeah. And like I think that approaching situations with the immediate thought that it's going to be negative, it isn't always like
negative.
That. Yeah, definitely.
Before they even start.
I learned that pretty quickly. Yeah. True. So just do what you need to do, but just know that not every experience is going to be a bad one.
Yeah. And now the most jaw-dropping female artist you'd love to work with.
Oh my God. So I'm going to go with Ethel Cain. Yeah. I love her.
Yeah.
I think we're like touring with Ethel Cain and watching her perform every night would be emotional and incredible. But I also want to say, and I've toured with this person before, but Maddie Watkins of You're the Knife. I would tour with her any day. She is the hardest working, most inspiring woman that I've ever been around. And yeah, amazing. She's amazing.
Great and very different choices. I like it. Yeah. Now, last one for you, the most jaw-dropping misconception about you that you wish people understood.
I don't know if there's any misconceptions about me. I'm sure there are. None that I know of. But maybe I get a lot of people who are like, I want to do what you do. Like, it's so cool. And especially being a woman, I think a lot of people think that I have it figured out. And I do not. I do not have being a woman touring figured out. Like, just recently I learned that I don't need to go into every situation assuming that it's going to be a negative experience. And I've been doing this for a long time. So I think maybe just like everybody's always learning.
Yeah.
Always. Like, you can be 10 years into your career and like you still don't have it all the way figured out. We're constantly learning.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I would say that like I don't have being a woman in a male-dominated space figured out.
No.
I don't know if any of us do.
But I guess that's a common denominator of anybody who's great is that we're always learning.
Yeah, we're always learning how to navigate.
Yeah.
Yeah, in our own ways.
Well, hey, thanks for sharing your wisdom because I feel like even in this conversation, I've been learning. So I'm really glad you came in. Thank you.
Thank you. This is so cool. Thank you so much for having me. This is what you're doing here is not only like talking to women in bands, but behind the scenes too. such a cool perspective for people to see. So thank you for having me.
Honored.
Letting me be a part of it.
Honored and glad we finally got to like sit down and properly chat. For sure. Too. Much needed.
Yeah.
And everybody who's watching, make sure you're staying tuned here on KNOTFEST She's of the Band. It's every other week. Subscribe if you're watching or listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Leave us a review. It helps a ton. And we'll catch you next time. Bye, y'all.